Welcome to the AI Institute for Next Generation Food Systems Spring Speaker Series. My name is Steve Brown, and I am the Associate Director of APHIS. Today, we are delighted to welcome Karim Pichara, co-founder and CTO of the Knot Company. Before I introduce Karim, let me give a quick introduction to the AI Institute for Next Generation Food Systems, also known as AIFS or APHIS. The Institute was established in 2020 under an NSF USDA NIFA grant with the mission of developing and leveraging transformative AI for the ethical production and distribution of safe, sustainable, nutritious food with fewer resources. APHIS is a multidisciplinary collaboration between researchers at 6 different institutions conducting research with a holistic, integrated view of the food system, solving challenges in molecular breeding, agricultural production, food processing and distribution, and nutrition, and the people behind the food system using AI and technology as an enabler. If you would like more information on the research and engagement activities of APHIS, please visit our website and connect with us on social media. Our speaker series features thought leaders addressing food system challenges using artificial intelligence. We hope you'll join us again for the upcoming talks in our series. You can register for these events at the link at the bottom of your screen. All of the recordings from our speaker series are posted on our YouTube channel, which you can find a link to from our website. Today, I'm delighted to be introducing Karim Pichara, one of the founders and the CTO of NotCo. He is a former computer science professor at UC Chile. Before co-creating NotCo, his work was to develop machine learning algorithms that analyze telescopes databases to assist astronomers in discovering the universe. Back in 2015, he created the first version of Giuseppe, the AI system that allows NotCo to create unprecedented plant-based products. Today, he is in charge of the AI at NotCo, a group formed by engineers, designers, research chefs, and food scientists, all working together to push the boundaries of technology and science to enable the foods of the future. Today's discussion will be moderated by Harold Schmitz. Harold is co-founder and general partner of March Capital US, LLC, and a senior scholar at the Graduate School of Management at the University of California, Davis. Previously, he served 2 terms at the Art and Carlis Sayoka Visiting Professor of Entrepreneurship and Innovation in the Graduate School of Management at the University of California, Davis. He worked at Mars, Incorporated for 25 years, where he developed and executed the company's global strategy for advanced research and innovation at the intersection of food, agriculture, health, and sustainability via collaborations across sectors including universities, government research institutions, and venture capital. He is an APHIS Advisory Board Chair and is also advisor to the Novo Nordisk Foundation's Bioinnovation Institute in Denmark and to Givaudan's Innovation Ecosystem Group known as MISTA. Let me stop sharing there. And a little bit more, he was recognized as outstanding alumnus of the Dale Bumpers College of Agriculture, Food, and Life Sciences at the University of Arkansas and was elected a life member in the Council on Foreign Relations. He was a USDA National Needs Research Fellow during 1990 through 93 at North Carolina State University, where he trained in the intersection of food, agriculture, and health and received his PhD in food science. He received his MS in food science from the University of Illinois. This discussion is meant to be interactive, and so we strongly encourage you to ask questions in the Q&A section throughout today's event. A note that closed captioning is available. Harold, I'll turn it over to you to start the discussion and proceed from there.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Steve. Great intro. And Karim, thank you very, very much for participating here. I won't say too much other than because you're going to show some slides now and talk about the company, which will be great. But one of the things, and it's sort of embedded in the name of the AI Institute for Next Generation Food Systems, and it's that food system piece. So we talk a lot about when you think about the value chain of the whole food system, from agriculture to post-harvest to processing to product development, and then on through to distribution, retail, the consumer, so on and so forth. It's a big value chain, and of course, artificial intelligence and predictive analytics, data science can and should be impacting and making each part of those value chains, better, more productive, and also integrating them all. And I'm really, really excited that you're able to join us, because you guys, that you're in the news, and I'm sure there will be questions. I'm certainly going to ask questions about the Kraft Heinz partnership, because I think that's a great example and extremely stimulating in terms of, you guys are actually beginning to interact in a big way at some key places in this overall value chain. So we're really, really excited to hear about that, and really excited to talk about how there could be partnership opportunities or collaboration opportunities between the university and government research sectors, as well as with what you guys are doing. So anyway, I'll stop there, and we'll have more questions later, but I'll turn it over to you now for your intro.
Okay, great. Thank you, Harold. Thanks for having me here. Okay, so I'll share some slides to do an intro. I'm going to try to make it quick so we can have some time for discussion. Can you see my screen there? Yes?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I like those new billboards, so took advantage of them, start the slides with that picture. Okay, so our main vision here and how everything started at NotCo is we wanted to propose a new way of making foods when we realized how broken was the food industry and the whole system, and that most of the solutions were not there because actually we didn't know how to make better products or how to make plant-based foods that are as tasty and attractive like the animal-based versions, right? So we said, why we do not work in developing an AI technology that help us to, at the end, efficiently explore the plant world and speed up all the developments and allow us to discover new knowledge here. And the strategy started by having very strong and interdisciplinary approach to create technology. In general, when you need to create a technology that is so specific in a very strong domain, like in the food science domain, you're not going to do that with engineers alone. Engineers will imagine the world one way. They will be attracted to the challenges without really maybe understanding how to actually create value and making sure that any technology that they might develop will actually be used in practice. So that's why we realized that immediately, as soon as we started developing technology, it was necessary to put together everyone involved in the solution, meaning bringing the chefs to put on the table all the culinary knowledge, and bringing the food scientists and putting all them together with the engineers, computer scientists, and designers to make the best technology. After we did that, we saw the difference. We were initially sometimes the technology was developed and then it was shown to the final users, and then they will come with feedback claiming that maybe it could be much better because it's not actually doing exactly what we are saying that it's doing. So after having the food scientists in the initial loops, being part of the brainstorming, design, and making the experiments to validate the first version of the technology, we came up with solutions that were actually delivering value. And that changed the game, right? Nothing of this can be done with great data sources. At the end, many people say that the AI is as good as the data you use to train it. So from the initial days of the company, I would say we started envisioning a very aggressive pipeline for data generation, meaning hiring scientists with the only purpose of creating data, and data that maybe wouldn't generate value in the short term at all, and was a big bet into assuming that at some point those data sources will bring us into something and will improve the technology. And fortunately that happened. So initially we start generating data, having scientists every day generating data from samples, food samples, ingredients, recipes, getting spectroscopy, texturometries, viscosimetry, GCMAs data, LCMS, all what you can capture to provide the technology with different perspectives of the data, and the later making sure that the algorithms will have there all the information in place to make the best decisions and learn the best representations. So the result of doing all that is like a novel technology that was, I would say, built bottom up, right? Like it was deployed across teams and different, helping in the different stages of the product creation architecture end to end. Today, the AI team, together with all our R&D, are the innovation hub in the company. We are creating this culture of disruption and innovation inside NotCo, where all the other teams understand that the next product's launch will depend on how advanced and how good are the innovations that are coming from the R&D and the AI team at NotCo. Also, besides having a new technology, you need to make sure that you treasure the way to actually use it. You cannot just come up with a huge system and pretend that every new food scientist or product developer that will come to the company will immediately adopt it right away. We've seen that the system, as it's becoming more and more complex, you need to tell the people how to actually use it. So in other words, it's not just about creating a technology, it's about creating the ways of working. All the necessary workflows need to be in place in order to make sure that you know exactly where to adopt the technology and for what specific purpose. And all that is part of a huge, like a very intensive training process. Because if we want that the product developers and food scientists adopt the technology and change the way they've been doing products in the past, you need to help them in that part, because if not, it's going to be too intensive. They're not going to use the technology in the best possible way, and at the end, they're not going to take advantage of all the possibilities, right? So part of our efforts are into discovering these workflows and improving them and modifying them every time. So initially, like we envisioned, or we saw that the way we create products is kind of like in a sequence, in where initially we screen the initial idea to start with the development of the prototypes, later start working in the scalability for in the next step, like launch the product and then do all the post-launch analysis and improvement of the product. That's kind of like the traditional way to do things. And we say, okay, like if we develop a technology that helps in the creation of products, this has to be end-to-end. We cannot just develop a technology that create prototypes and then pass the problem to the food scientists and product developers that are in charge of the scalability problem. We know that you can have an amazing product in the kitchen, but then to make that product a reality and make that scalable and later putting that product on the shelves is another world, and it could take years if you don't know how to solve those steps. So it is crucial that the technology also helps in that part. So that's why we have today, Giuseppe platform is mostly divided in 4 modules that they are not independent actually, but we like to present them as 4 different modules that are intended to solve different types of problems in this end-to-end product creation architecture, we call it, because it's not sequential anymore. Like, so I'm gonna quickly go over them, but at the end, like Biagio is a system that helps to generate the initial formulas, meaning like it helps to solve the problem of finding what are the actual ingredients and the proportions you need to use in order to mimic a given animal-based version. Discovery, I call it like the SAP of the food space, because that's a huge database with amazing dashboards where you can navigate all the ingredients that are available with in different suppliers in different countries. There you can find all the data. It's like our place where the data lives in, where you can see GCMS information, you can see the plots of the FTIR spectroscopy, and you can compare ingredients, all the nutritional information, all the specifications coming from the suppliers. Everything is there in a very like a user-friendly way to interact with. Giuseppe Toolbox is a module that we use for, we call it like all the properties improvements. Says in that module, the food scientists are able to optimize any property they want for any product, regardless of the category, to make sure that the product is scalable. So there we optimize texture, flavor, color, whatever, any aspects that are necessary to improve. And all that optimization is done at the same time. So you can have multiple objectives, because we know that you can, from one side, improve the texture, but then you can screw up the flavor or the color. So it's necessary to have an AI that assists you to improve all those aspects at the same time. And finally, we have the module called FloraFlora, that is our model for flavoring. All of us know that it's very challenging when it comes to flavor a food matrix that needs to be scaled. Like in general, it is necessary to complement the food matrix with a flavoring, and there is at the beginning, and when we didn't have this model, it took months to iterate with the different flavor houses to come up with a solution for the different products. So now FloraFlora is deployed and is actually being used between NotCo and different flavor houses to find the best plant-based ingredients for our food matrices, regardless of, again, of the product category. So these four models at the end are the ones that interact and help every food scientist and product developers. As soon as we get the product brief and the animal-based target, together with Giuseppe platform, we end up creating our products. And that's why with this technology, we've been able to launch several products in different countries and different categories at the same time, right? Here I wanted to show that we've been very serious about the generation of data and the data ingestion. This is very important. I mean, if we have technology, we need to make sure that every day new data is being generated, curated, improved, and put together and being available for all the scientists in the company, regardless of their location, right? So we have constant ingestion of data from traditional ingredients from the suppliers, but also from the industrial ingredients or ingredients from more innovative industries that are developing the ingredients of the future. Here in Bay Area, there are many companies, as you know, that are developing amazing new ingredients, and we are every day ingesting those ingredients into our databases, like bringing them to the digital world, such that Giuseppe have them as candidates for our new formulations. Maybe those ingredients are not scalable today, but we want to be always discovering new things and making sure we are considering them as potential candidates for the future, right? So we also have, of course, all the culinary ingredients, all the information about the target products. You cannot mimic animal-based products if you don't really know them at the same level, right? And of course, we have engineers scrapping all the data that is available on the web. Sometimes it delivers a lot of value and it's data that is there for free, right? So we have like implemented a whole technology and a pipeline that is every day working and passing this data, ingesting, preprocessing, integrating that, and putting it in the different available for the different systems. Okay, so I will super quickly. I don't know if Harold, if you think that's enough to start with the questions, or you would like to quickly go over the models, different models?
Yeah, I mean, my preference would be actually to go over these different models. This is a really good, this is providing us a great framework. So yeah, I think it'd be time well spent if you can continue.
Okay, great. So well, Biagio is our first system, and it's a system where the chefs and the food scientists start generating the first formulas, right? In general, you basically can go and type the animal version, the animal-based product you want to cook, like with only plant-based ingredients, and then you have a bunch of generated formulas that later you can filter out depending on your needs. You can restrict nutritional things. You can analyze the different formulas at the same time and see what is the nutritional profile. So at the end, after iterating in Biagio, the chefs can come up with a set of, let's say, 5 or 6 candidate formulas that are the best, that are the closest one for compared to the animal-based products we want to mimic. And at the same time, this works as a database because every time the chefs cook these formulas and suggest the improvements, they input all that data back into the system as new formulas with all the details, with every step they did in the cooking process of the formula, with any potential modification, with the sensorial feedback coming from a sensorial team, with standards ways of tagging that formula, and all that data is being generated daily and is going back into the system. So the latent discovery is the model that we use for exploration. This model is, I would say that is a must for every food scientist or product developer that is working in scaling up products, because then every time you launch a product, you need to adapt it many times. For example, let's say you launch a product in Argentina, then you need to create the same product in Brazil. It's a totally different story. You know that in Brazil, you want to have different suppliers and the same ingredient might look exactly the same. Maybe the specifications are the same, but when you try them, they are not the same. You don't get the same results. So you need to start doing ingredient replacement. You need to start searching for all the candidates right there. You can tell in Biagio that maybe the pea protein was one of the ingredients for a given formula, and then the product developer in Brazil will tell you, here in Brazil we have 120 different pea proteins. So which one is the one? So then in discovery, they can compare them, they can analyze all the nutritional profile, and they can get the most similar ones in comparing different aspects, like for example, the FTIR spectrum or GCMS data, and select the most similar candidate. So it's a great tool for data exploration, and it's growing every day. And we believe that in the future, is going to be there for all the companies that want to quickly explore all the ingredients that are available from the suppliers in different countries. And why not? I mean, we think that this is going to be the SAP of the food companies in the future. This is one example on how some of the models that are running behind discovery are suggesting for ingredient replacement, right? We have a pattern on this in where with the FTIR data, we could predict the secondary structure of the proteins and use that information to learn a similarity metric to recommend the most similar ingredients when it comes to ingredient replacement for the to adapt products in different locations. Toolbox is the model. I would say that this is one of the most flexible models we have in the AI team, because here basically the food scientists can configure anything they want. They can go and say, I would like to optimize, the stretchiness of this cheese together with the color and flavor. And I would like to find the ingredients, proportions, and I would like to optimize these process variables, everything together in the same experiment. And how that magic could happen, actually, well, this module learns as you use it. So the food scientist can configure in this experiment, can configure all the variables they want to optimize, and then the system generates an initial set of batches that should be tried in the lab in order to get the first results. So as soon as the food scientists try the initial batches, the systems learns what's going on and what is the level of interaction between the different variables and the optimization or target variables we want to improve. So then the system already suggests the second round of batches, and that comes much better. So we can see, for example, here, how flexible is the system where you can define different types of variables. You can use continuous data, categorical data. You can restrict the domain where your variable is going to live. Like, let's say, that this maybe is an oil, and I know that I want to find a solution among these 5 different types of oils. You can restrict that in the domain part. right? So this information actually is connected with Biagio and Discovery. So many times when you get, let's say, 10 different candidates for formulas, and you see that one, if you put together these 10 formulas, you get 5 types of oils, but then you want to improve over them, and you want to make sure which one should be the winner, then you put that input into the system. That is kind of like the output of Biagio, right? Goes as an input in Toolbox, and then this model helps you to do this more, the fine tuning and this improvement and better selection. So you can put bounds also that is coming from the human knowledge, let's say, like the sensorial team. Sometimes you are, if you are improving on the flavor and you're using your sensorial team to assess the flavor, they can actually input their value, and it's not necessarily an objective measurements, right? Of course, we can use, and you will use most of the time, like objective measurements, for example, the texturometry curve. And when we want to improve or make this, the texture of this, ice cream exactly like this animal-based ice cream, we get the texturometry, and then the system tries to approximate the texture curve to the whole texture curve of the animal-based version, and those are objective measurements as well. So you can put all of them and combine and optimize them together. So this is an image of an example of how the system works, and where you, if we want to, here we were creating like a cream cheese, and initially you can see that the color looked really bad, but after an iteration and putting back the results of the system with the feedback, then the system starts suggesting new batches that are becoming more closer and closer to the final target. So this is an amazing system. We've been using it in many different products, and it's been accelerating exponentially all the product developments. And here we can see that it is super flexible about the constraints you can add. That because thanks to our food scientists, we know that it is very important that we give them all the tools to add the constraints they want, because every time things are different, they might want to use something in one situation, but at some moment they would like to add a new restriction and search in a more restricted space, fine-tune some proportion in a more restricted range, and sometimes a wider range. All that can be done in the system. And finally, FloraFlora is the system we're using today for the creation of flavors for NotCo products, and is being deployed with the flavor houses already. Actually, we are connected with them, and we are sharing this information with the flavorists there for them to quicker come up with a flavor solution for our different products. So here we have an AI that analyzes the molecule, actually at the molecule level, and also at the description level of the flavors, so at the natural language level, and then suggest ingredients, oils, and essences that have the same volatile compounds of the animal-based target flavor we want to achieve. So, and of course, it considers the food matrix we have, and we need to improve with the flavor, right? So this is kind of like the pipelining where we have the animal target, then we make the GCMS analysis on the fly, then we get the profile of it, and our we have a graph neural network that combines like the molecules structure as an input together with the flavor descriptions of the compounds, and recommends ingredients that we have, plant-based ingredients that we have the similar compounds, right? And it's dramatically accelerating the flavor creation process. This is an example of the contribution of Flora in one of our last launches, where we launched the nut chicken burger, and it suggested like a strawberry and tomato for the creation of flavor. So besides accelerating the solution, it is finding ingredients for flavor creation that were like wow factors, and that surprised even to the same flavors that they never, for example, they said that they will never come up with a combination of strawberry and tomato to create a chicken flavor, or something that helps into the final chicken flavor for the matrix for a burger, right? So this is one of the upsides of having a technology also in the last mile of the product as well. Okay, well, we have an IP strategy, and to us it's very important to protect the technology, at least to have all the freedom to operate. We have already 8 approved patents, and what we in general protect are all our interdisciplinary discoveries, the models that are behind the AI technologies and the way we apply them into the food space. We also patent the different ways we use the scientific data for product creation. And also we patent the ways we design the human-computer interaction interfaces. That's we have actually one patent that is protecting specifically Biagio, because when you, in our cases, it's very, very important to be as close as we can to the human needs from the human-computer interaction perspective layer. Let's say like if you design a very complex system that is mostly implemented by engineers with so many levels of abstractions, in where you are asking a food scientist to abstract from their lab problem and design some situation in a platform, it has to be really user-friendly and has to be very easy to configure, modify, and use. And that's very challenging. So we have a team of designers that are every day like talking to the food scientists and chefs and understanding what are their main needs, and coming up with novel designs of the interaction with of the layer, and the way the layer gets the information and inputs it back to the system and comes back with new proposals is also something that could be protected with IP and with it. So that said, our final vision here is like in general, we are a tech company. Today, our products are a consequence of our technology, and today we have the best plant-based products, but we don't know what we're going to have in the future. Maybe in the future, our technology will allow us to have novel animal-free ingredients that we don't know today, unknown flavors, maybe mind-blowing textures, super functional properties, who knows? That's why it's important to focus in that. Like products are a consequence of technology, and the technology and the science is what we have to continue to develop in the future. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you. That last couple of sentences you said, that was a really nice conclusion there, especially that last sentence. So I've got a ton of questions, and I spent a number of years in industry myself. So as you were going through that, I was definitely placing myself both in the university, and sort of government research lab setting, but also in a food industry lab setting. But that was really, really cool. So just a few questions to start with, and if people can post questions they might have in the chat room, please do. I've got the chat screen up so I can see stuff when it comes up. But first question that I have is, so you came, you didn't come from the food world specifically. You came from a different sort of background. How would you compare the complexity of the sector you were working in previously to coming to NotCo versus the complexity of the food sector and what you're trying to do now? Is it essentially the same? It's all agnostic, it's all the same, or is there a different sort of complexity level that you're seeing or experiencing?
That's a good question. It's definitely different. It's not the same. It's hard to say which one is harder. You're going to have different challenges, right? And previously I was working to improve technologies for astronomy, to make new discoveries. And there, you cannot even touch the things you are analyzing, right? They're really far. You only have data, and you have data that it's really specific and super hard to get. And you only can discover some stuff. Here is a totally different world, because here, first of all, you have the human perception that is the last assessment for a product you are doing. Second, every time you are making a new task is going to be different. That's one of the main things in product creation. We never focused in one product category, so we always decided to be to develop a technology agnostic to the category or to the product. And it's always the same technology if you're doing like a plant-based candy or if you're doing like a burger, it doesn't matter. And for that, you need to envision like a generic way of creating data. But the problem you have there is a food scientist will tell you, well, actually, when I am doing like a candy or a burger or a milk, it's really different.
Yes.
So even though your technology is general purpose, we have to talk here and solve this problem, because to me, the problems and the challenges are totally different. The machines I'm using are different. The ingredients are different. Maybe the targets are going to be different, because in one case, I really need to pay attention to the nutritional profile. In other ones, I need to pay attention just to the flavor. In other, the texture is the problem. And so we needed to develop a super adaptive and flexible technology that somehow can operate in a different manner, but with the same base brain or AI brain and data sources running below, right?
So there's a couple of questions popping up, but I just want to follow up so you got to where you got to, and this is, as a food guy, this is where my brain went as you started to answer that question is, for us in the food world, either accurately or inaccurately, we would consider burgers and candies, like you said, those are universes unto themselves, literally. And so, maybe it's because we're so close in and part of this world, but to me, the complexity of what you are trying to do is, it's pretty mind blowing, because there's all these different universes of products and how consumers interact with them, and savory and sweet and so on and so forth. So that's really, really interesting. And I guess that just one quick follow-up, and then I'll go to the chat board here, because there's a couple that build right on this. So as you're and I know this is obviously you have to be confidential in what you're saying, and I'm sure you will, but so you guys started as NotCo and actually developing products as NotCo. And now you're entering into this agreement with Kraft Heinz. So it's like you've gone from a world where you had the self-contained startup, so to speak. Now you're interacting with this established legacy player. How are those universes interacting? And then I'll go to the chat screen here with some questions.
Yeah, well, this is a great scenario for us to test our R&D and technology. We always wanted to change the industry, and we knew that we were not going to do this alone. I mean, we wanted others to join this journey and the best way to do it is like we offer our technology and our science and R&D to tell others how to improve their plant-based portfolio, right? So if you jump on the shoulders of a big player that has a distribution of the products everywhere in the world, you can accelerate the impact, right? So one thing is to put our products in the hands of hundreds of thousands of people in South America and then in the US and go step by step going to different countries. But when you go and make a huge company to rely on you to create these plant-based products such that later they can quickly put those products in the hands of millions of people, and then you really change the game. And so this is why we're so happy to partner up with them and being the responsible ones to create their plant-based portfolio. So basically, it's that's it. I mean, it is like a way where Kraft Heinz said, these guys have shown that their technology is really working, and for that was really important to create our own products, because you can come as a company telling we have a tech solution and we want you to adopt our technology to create your products. Since the food industry is so complex and you know how hard is to come up with an actual product that is being sold everywhere on the shelves, you need to prove them that your technology can actually do that. So this is why after they saw that we were launching so many products at the same time in different countries so fast, they say, wow, now you prove me that your technology works and you know what it takes to create products. So now you are ready to create our own products. And that's the thing, like initially we didn't know that the industry was maybe not going to adopt the technology itself as a standalone solution without us telling them how it works, and without like us operating it and using it to launch the products end to end. So at the end here, we are creating the products because so far we are the ones that know how to operate the technology. Maybe in the future, the situation is going to be different, and maybe in the future, other companies can access our technology in a standalone manner, doing their own processes. But today, the first partnership, and we believe is suitable for a situation that is good, that the first partnership is relying totally on us for the creation of this portfolio.
I mean, that's really cool. Thank you for going through that. And I apologize for the movement. As you were answering that, my battery was just about to run out, so I had to find the plug. But in any case, that's really, really cool. So I'll move to the chat screen here. So Gabe Yahtzee is asking, let me, whoops, there we go. Whoops, Gabe, if I just lost you, oh, there it is. If you're on, can you talk and actually just say the question?
Hi, Harold, I'll read it. Yeah,
Oh,
Gabe,
thanks, Steve.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Gabe is asking, what types of data are not available yet that would be incredibly valuable, but are still a wicked hard problem to solve related to food ingredient and product development?
Thanks, Gabe. That's a great question. Well, in general, all the data we've seen a bunch of different ways of capturing data out there, and some of them are really expensive and really slow. We are making all the efforts to acquire every equipment that we know that is providing data that can actually like deliver new perspectives. There's new perspectives that we don't have today. I don't know if there is some sort of data that today is not possible to capture, probably because we haven't heard or seen the equipment that is capturing that information. There are some equipments that we are seeing, not so sure if I can talk about it, but we are buying new equipment that is bringing new data, new perspective, but it's extremely expensive and slow. And we are thinking like 3 or 4 years ahead. But today, the idea is to rely in the data that can actually be generated at a reasonable frequency, right? Because if you rely on data that you will take a week to get the information about one sample, it's not feasible in practice. As you know that at least if you are interacting with a system that is solving a problem, when you are at the lab bench and you need the solution right at that moment, you need to at least be able to acquire the data of your targets the same day. So let's say you need to be able to capture, for example, the GCMS data of any animal-based target you're trying to mimic. And if it's the only way to operate a technology in a daily basis, right? So today there are technologies that are extracting data that is still super expensive and super slow, but hopefully in the future, that can be reduced by some orders of magnitude. So that if something is taking 3 weeks, could be go to a few days and reduce also the cost. For example, LCMS, two-dimensional gels, kind of things that still are expensive, like maybe in the future are going to be there and will enable new discoveries and new technologies, right?
So, and my chat screen's back, so I can, Danielle LeMay will have a question in a second. I just want to build like really directly with APHIS here. So, you know, I guess to build on Gabe's question about data assets that would become available that would be helpful for you guys that you don't have availability to, how could you, if you could draw a collaboration on the board with Davis, Berkeley, Cornell, and Illinois, the universities represented by APHIS, what would that look like for you guys?
We are super open to that. I mean, that would be wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I think initially would be like a sort of like a research project to see if the data is actually delivering value or helping in the different solutions we believe, right? in general it does, like in general it works. So yeah, you know that for an AI system to start operating, you need some initial minimal amount of data. At least you need to screen all the ingredients that are going to be candidates or will play a role in your problem, right? You need to screen the targets and to screen the ingredients that are candidates for you to solve the different problems. So that's the approach that we would follow. And in general, the idea is to keep extracting the data of all the ingredients that are out there, and hopefully the different products, which is like when you can assess the interaction among the ingredients, right? Because one thing is, I mean, the interaction is not linear. If you extract data of separate ingredients and then you combine them and you extract the data, you don't get the linearly combined result of the inputs, right? And that's a very challenging thing here. And that's why you need to also extract the data from the food matrices to make the AI learn these ways of this level of interaction, and later come up with solutions that you couldn't, as a human, maybe you couldn't predict, right?
Yep, perfect. I was just, as you were going through that, I was thinking of, you know, if we can get students involved, for example, in that, then all of a sudden we start creating sort of the hyphenated talent in terms of, you know, data science and domains of expertise like food science, food chemistry, you know, so on and so forth. So Danielle LeMay says, great talk, exclamation point. When you optimize, so thank you. When you optimize for nutrients, is that the few nutrients on the nutrition facts label, or the 70-ish macro micronutrients in the USDA databases, or the many more nutrients reported in the literature? Great question, Danielle.
A good question. Is the second one. In general, you know, the more, if you try to optimize on the details, you get a better result. So yeah, we work at the maximum level of granularity, but of course it's up to the food scientists at the end. So they can configure and that they can optimize whatever they want. So they might go and optimize over the space of all the macro and micronutrients or not, right? It'll depend on the product. It'll depend on the stage of the product, right? But both alternatives are available. But in general, if you are at the level of finding, for example, the initial ingredient candidates, then you go over all the possible information you have, and that means you put all the nutritional ingredients together. Nutritional indicators, sorry.
Excellent. Then the next question is from Bruce German. And Bruce says, wonderful concepts. And just to be provocative, so I can definitely hear him now with the question, just to be provocative, if the computational standard is animal-based products, then we cannot imagine better, quote unquote, than animal. And yet the real opportunity is to develop a food system that is not only more sustainable, but also more nourishing, more safe, and more delicious. In such a future, we don't have to convince the people to switch out of animal products. The new products do that. Will they do that spontaneously? And lastly, can you imagine how the algorithms could possibly do that?
That's great. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And it's something we always keep in mind. We always say here, like, we need to keep the processes and threads that are running into the discovery mode. One thing is when you need to optimize and you know the target. But another thing is like when you need to discover new things. So that's where we are. That's why we are working in these discovery modes, in where sometimes the food scientists don't actually know what they need to do, or they don't actually know what they will develop. And it's not so different. I know it sounds weird, but when you don't have a target, basically the only thing you need to drive your development is a sort of like a sense of improvement in every step, right? So at least you need to tell the system that what you tried, you like this and you didn't like that. So with that, you are providing the system with some sort of driver, such that the system start understanding what are the areas of the space that needs to be explored in order to come up with something that is appealing for the user, in this case, the food scientist. So yeah, it's definitely something we are working on. We know that not every time we're going to be behind some animal-based products, and that's going to happen probably very soon. I mean, we know that innovation is not to come up with a burger or with a chicken burger. That's not an innovation. We know that. And hopefully sooner than later, we're going to come up with technology that helps for the innovation and discoveries and these products of the future.
Very cool. Would you be able to, have you guys sort of arrived at like a rate, let's call it an innovation rate, you know, such that you can say, look, by utilizing our tools and our approach, if you're Kraft Heinz or if you're, you know, food company X in general, you should expect a, you know, high quality innovation rate increase that goes from 1 in 100 to 10 in 100, you know, in terms of six, you know, that sort of thing. Do you have metrics yet on that?
Yeah, what we try to do there is, like, in general, we capture all the usability information in our systems, and we make sure that those metrics are being improved. But because at the end, what you're saying is true, that you need to see that at a different levels, we are getting better. For example, the most basic thing is, like, if at the beginning NotCo was taking a year in developing a product, how long you are taking now? And if you see that now you're making new products every 4 months in different countries, that's sort of like a very general indicator. But then as you're going deeper and deeper, then you can see, for example, how many batches food scientists is taking now in reaching a specific objective or target in regardless of the category compared with before. Why? Because now, as you know, the times goes on, you have more and more data. The learnings and the representations of the AI are better. So then the way the AI explore the space is better and should be more efficient. So then you should take less and less in finding the improvements. Also, you need to compare that rate with the rate of new data generation, the new data entry. So if you increase your data set sizes in 30%, what was the rate of increasing all the other improvements you need to assess? So that's a very challenging part, and we don't really know today what are going to be the best metrics in the future. It's very hard. Some people sometimes, you know, tell me about the contribution of the system into this product, and they start thinking, oh, how many ingredients out of the label were suggested by the technology? And that's not the answer. Sometimes you can have, you know, that when you create a product, maybe the proportion doesn't tell you anything. Maybe the smallest proportion is the one that is changing the game. Sometimes the ingredients that are there in the smallest quantities are really making the difference. So it's not about measuring quantities and compare them with if they were suggested by the technology or not. It's probably about being able to capture the feedback of people, how it's getting better, the feedback on the system over time, and how long you're taking now into improving all the aspects you need to improve, regardless of the aspect, regardless of the product and the category. And of course, any ideas there are welcome, because
well, no, I just want to say, I think what you just captured was a beautiful representation, I would imagine, of how, like, we could think about collaborations with the APHIS institutions and stuff like that. I mean, what you just laid out, it's like, I mean, really what you're talking about is, you know, yeah, there's pace, but there's quality. And there's, you know, and there's also this compounding effect that happens between all these bits. And you guys are making huge progress, but there's definitely a lot to explore there. I mean, that you just encapsulated, I think, a beautiful opportunity for thinking about collaborations. So well, Steve, is it over or not?
We could go on another hour. This has been fascinating.
I know.
But we are at the end of the hour, and
right.
We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Anything final you'd like to say, Harold or Karim?
I'll turn it to Karim first.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks. I mean, mostly thanks for this opportunity. Thank you for all the super interesting and good questions. You don't find those questions every time you make a talk. So I love the discussion, and I would love to continue discussing about the opportunities to collaborate. I know that the only way to being, at the edge of the curve is to interact with the best universities. So we should definitely be in touch and see what are the projects that will enable the products of the future. And NotCo is always interested in that. So thank you.
And
Awesome.
thank
Well,
you.
Couldn't say anything better than that. So I'll leave it at that. This was a great session.
Agreed. Thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure, and I'd like to invite everybody on this call to also check out our next speaker on the 20th of April in 2 weeks. So, Karim and Harold, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.